So today I'm going to be doing photos with the Leica 90mm macro-elmar f4 in studio. So I do need to use flash because it is an f4 and I'm going to take it down to 5.6. But the other lighting thing here today is I'm actually going to use a small softbox for the background, using the gray and adding color into it to get some, a unique backdrop with this. I usually just use a straight flash, whether it's a speed light or the A2, which is, a speed light technically. But I'm just going to shine it up at the backdrop, add some color onto this, which is why you'll see I love the Pro Photo lights so much. Let me show you. Now, I don't know what color I'm using, but I just grabbed one. These are nice. I love them. They're expensive, but Pro Photos are the nicest. I mean, they just pop in, I'm done. And that's it. I'm ready to go. But I want to see how this does, because like I said, I usually just use the bare head, but I really want to get an even, more spread out kind of backdrop, like a big arch with the backlight. And again, you can use speed lights for this or whatever. But that's my setup for today. I'm using a speed light over here with barn doors. I may switch this out, I don't know, to a grid. And then just a 30-inch softbox with a B10 for the main light. Again, I don't have a grid for that, which I wish I had one. And it may be an issue because of the spread of light. I don't know, I may have to turn it, but I only have a grid for the small softbox because I just never got one for that, which I'm going to end up having to do soon. I think I'm going to need to keep this a good distance from here to tilt it up and get a good spread for what I'm looking for. So hopefully it works out. And I'll try to do a couple raw test shots before my model comes to see what it looks like. And this is the other thing with this is, depending on the height of your model or how low you're shooting, this may be an issue. So I may have to take this right down to the floor or use a short stand, a backdrop stand, which I think I'm just going to do anyway. Now this is a backdrop stand. I always have one of these in my car because, and in studio, because the times you'd need one would really surprise you on how, I mean, they're very handy, they come in handy, but this is as tall as it goes. But I can drop it down a lot as well, so. Now, they're not the sturdiest things in the world, but it's a backlight, so, in theory, nobody's going to walk into it. In theory. So I can get a lot lower with this. And in worst case scenario, I can just throw this thing on the ground and point it up. That's an option as well. So hopefully this will give me what I need when I'm looking for. I am going to try this to see what it looks like. And like I said, without the grid on the main light, that may be an issue, but I'm not going to test it here. I'm just going to test this one really quick to see what my spread of light is. So I have some adjusting to do because I want this more of an arch, but depending on how tall the model is, it may come out nice. And remember, I am using, a closed down shutter, so my background's going to be a little bit in focus, but I will defocus it just to see how much. Now if I move it closer, it's going to make it shallower, and I tilted it down as well, so I just want to see how much of a spread I'm still getting. But this is a really nice throw, and I'm going to try to make the background as out of focus as it's going to be for the photo. So it is kind of an uplight, and obviously it's picking up wrinkles in the backdrop, but it's giving me that look that I'm looking for, with more of an arched kind of fadeaway to the top. So we'll see what it does. Anyway, stay tuned for the shoot. And for this lens, this is the 90 macro, and it collapses, locks in. There is a hood for this. I just don't use hoods very often unless I'm desperately in need of it, like outdoor, or if I'm using, you know, different lighting that it may pick up. But this 90 macro is pretty spectacular, and it's extremely sharp. But anyway, enjoy the shoot. I've never recorded so many of these in my life. That little snarl that my daughter gives me every time I turn my back to the camera kills me. I just crack up laughing every time. Okay, first shot out of camera. Obviously the backlight to the camera left is a little too hot. I do love the fall off. I love the pink backdrop. I absolutely loved it. She hated it. But I thought it was unique and gave a nice look to the photo. She didn't like it at all. Which, you know, in the end, they're her images, so I got to listen and go, okay, I just take the gel out. So, you know, it's literally 2 seconds to walk over and take the gel out. Now, adjustments with the lights. You know, somebody asked me, like, why am I always walking over? Because, you know, these are pro photos, and, you know, you can just, you can just adjust the lights through the remote. I use the Connect remote, so the adjustments aren't on the Connect remote. They're on my app, which I have no problem in using, but I film with my iPhone, so I can't even go into it because then I couldn't film and then make the adjustment changes. Anyway, that's why I walk over and do it. And, you know, I'm old school. I'm used to doing that anyway, so it doesn't bother me. So I'm using the translucent part of the reflector disc because I wanted just a touch of fill on her face. I didn't want a full fill, like even with white, you know, if you back it off. This, to me, I can control it. I can control where it goes. And the translucent, it, you know, lets some light through, and it just reflects a little bit of light back. And yeah, I caught her that time. Anyway, it just gives me the right amount of fill, and I can move it in and out and, you know, make the adjustments to where I'm happy with that kind of fill. This is me taking the pink out after she yelled at me again. So the gray backdrop was cool to me, with the white light, with that cream sweater. Not saying that the pink was the best choice for the cream sweater, but you know, after I took that out and saw the photo with the gray, I have it coming up here. It was just, something was a disconnect. There it is. I mean, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely unsatisfied with that photo, but it just wasn't working. So then I switched to the cocoa. I can't believe I actually used the word cocoa for a color. Anyway, brown, whatever it is. Now let me just touch on the lens here, because that's what the video is supposed to be about. The lens I love. I love the weight of it. I love the size of it. I love that it collapses and is the size of 50 for, you know, throwing in my bag. I think that's going to be spectacular for events. Obviously not indoor events. It is an f4. That's the widest aperture. In studio, it's spectacular. I rarely shoot under f4 anyway. I'm usually at 5.6, but I did shoot this entire shoot at f4. I made it a point so I can see how the lens does, you know, how sharp it is wide open. And it is the perfect amount of sharpness. Now, it is a macro. They call it a macro lens, but you need a macro adapter. So this is the image. It's broad lighting. There's one thing my daughter hates is broad lighting. So obviously I have to switch it over. For me, I wanted to see the shot with broad lighting. It's easy. You just keep them in the same position they were and flip lights. You can actually just turn the model, but then a lot of models are like, well, this is my best side, so a lot of times you're going to end up switching lights anyway. I push the backlight to the other side, have the main light on the, the short side now, and you'll see the difference. It's kind of night and day, because it does narrow a face tremendously. Now, everything's great about this shot. I like it, and you can see how much narrower the face is, but I still, like, there's those dark shadowed spots on that one side where I think, just that tiny little bit of fill is going to make a difference. And it does. Now, you can use the white translucent, you use a white piece of cardboard. It doesn't matter what you use. And instead of using those big V-flats that, not a lot of people have the room for or have, one of these cheap discs like this, I mean, this is a little tiny one that'll fit in your back pocket once you fold it up. Using something like this is going to give me just a touch of fill, when I'm on the translucent disc side, and it's going to make a difference. And I think you can pick these up for $10, $12 on Amazon. And you get the other things, so it's a 5-in-1. You have the silver, the gold, the black. I love these little discs. This one has the handle, which I really love because I like holding it myself, because I rarely have an assistant for a job. Anyway, so the fill on this is spectacular. It's just the right amount. It doesn't overfill. It still gives me the shadows that I love, and you can see it lifted up the shadows just the slightest little bit. And I'll pop back and forth now with, one with fill, and this is no fill. So you can see it's just ever so slight bump, but it means everything. Now the lens, again, really sharp, but not clinically. I want to say not clinically. Now here's the broad lighting versus the short lighting. It is a huge difference. I love the broad lighting. She hates it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the shoot. The lens is spectacular if you're thinking about it. If you have any questions, leave them below. Here's a zoomed in shot to show you the lens at f4. Really good. Happy with the shoot, happy with the lighting, and happy with that lens.